Bad advice? Good advice? You decide. Midswatch, Ryan, it's good to see you guys. I have a wonderful little meta post for you again. This one is a case of one of the newer members, and I'm saying newer now. This was 7 years ago. So by now he's probably in his 50s and has been living this for a long time. Trying to talk about the real married red pill and you, which they come up every now and again where people like to define terms, define the group goal and all this stuff. And sometimes they are good, and a lot of times they're bad, but usually it all kind of gets sorted out in the comments anyway. So this first guy who deleted his account and moved on, I think he had a name. I can't remember. They probably mentioned it at some point in here. And he brings a married red pill and you, like a how-to guide, how to get around this first thing. And then probably one of the best case studies I think you can find in here from a guy named CPen. Kind of corrects the information, and then, as always, we'll talk about Jack 10 and then myself. So without further ado, the married red pill and you. Okay, so you've discovered the red pill, you've read the literature, and you've started improving yourself. Great. Don't implode your marriage. I sometimes worry about guys that I see on here that are too literal, that apply the red pill to their lives like a sledgehammer. This is about improving yourself and your life, not destroying it. In the married red pill, the stakes are higher. You need to think about what you're doing. By this point in time, you know your spouse. Focus on yourself and take the wisdom you get from the red pill that works for you. Eventually, you'll become a better and more respectable version of yourself, but you should still be yourself. Don't be a clone. Don't try to apply every single thing you're learning. Your wife married you for a reason, and let's hope it was out of respect and not for your money. If the latter's the case, you got extra work to do. If you learn something and it seems like it won't work out for you and your marriage, then don't do it. It's that simple. You're the one who has the most information about your own personal situation. Learn from others, but trust your own judgment. Just pair that with being critical of your own thought process. Is this the new you and is worthy of respect? Or is this the blue pill, beta you thinking? A good set of checks and balances can go a long way. And a really common red pill mistake that I see is made from the idea that all women are like that equals all women are the same. All women are like that works because it recognizes that there's certain tendencies that are common to being female. Many behaviors are predictable. This also goes for thought processes and reactions. That shouldn't be confused, however, with the idea that the one way of being, one set of actions will work for every single woman. You know your wife better than we do. You've seen how she reacts in the past. Listen to what the rest of us say, but take into account your own counsel as well, because sometimes a modified approach will work better for you than the suggested one. What works perfectly for one man may be completely destructive for another. Trust yourself. Use the rest of us to help make you stronger, sure. But remember that we're only just dudes on the internet. We don't end up with the consequences of your actions. You do. The judgment call and the accountability are yours. That sounds nice, right? Yeah, it's like a wonderful statement. That's great. It's a nice little thing. He got roasted pretty hard. Really hard. And there's I could go into hundreds of thousands of words telling him why he should shut up and he doesn't know what he's talking about. But usually out of these kind of kerfluffles, we end up with a more concise understanding of what it is we're trying to communicate. Iron sharpens iron. Usually comes when older people start to correct the younger guys' information. And I don't mean older, younger as in age. I just mean as in time in and experience, right? So this is where CPen comes in, or CPen comes in. He's actually an awesome guy. He had a neurotic wife, wanted a third kid. He didn't, generally dealt with that shit test. And for a while there, he became the main character of the internet and had about 100,000 people yelling at him in some longhouse feminine imperative type stuff. Articles were getting rid about him. It was pretty impressive the amount of social pressure he was given, but he managed to hold his own. Ended up having a wonderful marriage. Found out the whole reason the wife wanted the baby is because she was neurotic and thought it was the only way to keep him around. Meanwhile, he knew the way to be happy was to have the 2 kids he could already afford and not go crazy about it. And then since then, they've been great ever since. So he's always one of the best sources I can explain when it comes to Frame. And it's yeah. So anyways, he decides to make his own version of this one. He goes, okay. So you discovered the red pill, you've read the literature, and you started improving yourself. Great. A lot of guys come on here and write about their wives, complaining about the mean man they're becoming. She accuses you of only wanting her for sex. She accuses you of being a selfish asshole. This is not a sign that your marriage is imploding. This is expected. Look at what she does. Don't listen to what she says. If there's more sex, or at least signs of increased interest in it, you're on the right track. If there's not enough, you need to improve. Lift, consistent diet, make your strong frame, pass shit tests, do interesting things, learn game, play Dread. This is first and foremost about improving yourself. Your demands will be met in time. Don't get butthurt if it doesn't happen in the first month. Now before the main event, which, side note, that's a really, really big topic and it deserves its own video, so I'm not going to put it here. It's technically the end result of Dread, the mother of all comfort tests. Anyways, back to this. It can be rough with her constant criticism of the changes you've made and her threats to leave. I got hit with doubts. Maybe my wife is different. Don't I know my wife better than these guys on the internet? What if she really is gonna leave me because I've become an asshole? Is this who I really am? Oh, fuck that shit. Men are not born, they are made. We are born with all sorts of stupid fears, desires for unhealthy things, a tendency for playing nice and being lazy. Lock all that down and you mold yourself into the image of a better man. Be better than you. Remember, AWOLT. All women are like that. This is a core tenet of the red pill for a reason. It's so easy to think that my girl is different. It's so easy to listen to her words, to think that you know her, but it's just not the case. AWOLT. Remember it. Kill any ideas you have in your head that you know better than the married red pill. You don't. You're wrong. Look at all the guys who are here and went from dead bedrooms and bitchy wives to porn star sex and admiration. Look at all the guys spinning plates over at the red pill. Do you really think that none of us would have figured it out if girls were different? And there'd be a few models of her thought process instead of just that one? So apply what you've learned. Go all in. Deal with the fallout. Pass the shit test. It's par for the course. And don't ever let the person fear or doubt enter your mind. You can't fear divorce. The person most willing to walk out is the other one controls in the relationship. This is the cardinal rule of relationships. If you fear she'll leave you or you're not willing to walk out, that's leverage for her and it breaks your frame. That's the reason that the non-red pill guys get the most sex in the beginning of a relationship and the least after they have kids. It's because he becomes invested and he feels he has something to lose. Trust. Use us and your combined knowledge here to make yourself stronger and better. You end up with the consequences of your actions, so don't insist on doing this half-assed or your way. Your way did not work, or you wouldn't be here on this random forum asking anonymous retards on the internet. This is not a game where you can just goof around. This is a major part of your life and happiness. Educate yourself, apply yourself, lift and lead. Bit of a different message. You notice that? But I want you guys to pay attention to this, and I'm going to get to Jack's thing in a sec. I'll say this piece first. That first one, it sounded good. It felt good. It made you believe in yourself. It told you that you knew what you were doing and that she is different and she's special. And you were like, yeah. And I saw it. I recorded this thing live and there's a lot of people in the chat that are like, yes, that's awesome. Since there is no ultimate good to defer to, you have to know what you want so that you can ask yourself the right questions. And then I threw this one in here, the cold dose of reality. Somebody who's actually finished the red pill and gotten to where he wants to be in a relationship. And that's what it's like after the war, as opposed to talking what it's like before the war. So yeah, don't kid yourself. People, and it's not just like women are all like that. People are mostly predictable. People are mostly the same. And that's not a bug, that's a feature. If we were that fundamentally different, we'd be all over the map. But it's a good thing. Most guys have the exact same problems and the exact same solutions, which means we're entirely predictable. Most women are literally like that, or it wouldn't be called all women are like that. It's a good mental model here. So the next part, we get into Jat. And this is what I like about it too, because yeah, I just told you that too. Now, there. So he brings up how CPN was saying this is the exact opposite of what you heard from this wonderful advice here. And Jack's like, you know what, this is my observation. But both of you guys can think you're right because you're mostly projecting your experiences and then each posting as if it should be the conventional red pill wisdom. A torrent of wife shit testing can be indications of a successful man applying red pill advice. It can also apply to a guy being way too aggressive and confrontational when unnecessary. We have countless posts here from some guy describing some recent fight with his wife. Half of the commenters say, fuck that bitch, keep doing what you're doing. And the other half say, whoa dude, slow your roll, you're doing it wrong. Your post and Ferocians are just another representation of this dichotomy. The explanation, to me, is simple. A wife with some combination of traits, like anxiety, narcissism, low self-esteem, will be especially prone to shit testing in face of seeing her husband's prioritizing himself and the focus of his own self-improvement, no matter how deliberate and measured he is. Conversely, a wife who is mostly well-adjusted and may not need more than the baseline stop being a man-child and stop being a fat-ass advice, and the shit tests are any indication of a guy just completely missing the boat on the red pill. So why this seeming confusion? Because the red pill community, as far as I can tell, says AWOLT all the time, and yet 95% of them cannot give you a cohesive answer for that. That means what? In my humble opinion, most times I see somebody refer to AWOLT, it's used as a synonym to roughly mean all women are soul-sucking bitches who would run off with Chad Thundercock the minute she got a chance. Or the slightly more charitable, all women are evolutionary hardwired to find a supportive beta like you even though she really wants to fuck somebody better looking. So relax. I'm not suddenly ripping off my married red pill approved flair just to show you that I've been a suit of white armor all along, but AWOLT, in the most constructive definition I prefer to use for any man, is all women are attracted to men who add value in their lives. This probably comes across as stupidly obvious, so you may be wondering why I'm saying like it's some sort of grand revelation, but the red pill gives us insight to deconstruct this phase in ways that are different than most mainstream messages, such as 1. Adding value to somebody's life is correlated to how much intrinsic value you possess yourself. Add value to yourself, and any actions you take add value to others and makes it that much more meaningful. Or to put it another way, the more valuable you are, the less value-giving things you have to do. 2. Women rarely define value in a way that's helpful to men. Men are led to believe that the main ways women seek value in men is via their kindness and commitment, but this is not nearly the entire equation. 3. In many cases, value is orthogonal to what we consider virtue. Traits like honesty, compassion, patience may make you a virtuous person, but it doesn't make you a valuable person. It doesn't make you worthless, it's mostly just irrelevant. So as I've said, all women are attracted to men who add value in their lives, and the real nuance specific to the married red pill is this. The difference in what we define as value versus what our wives think they define as value dictates just how rough a red pill transition will be for a marriage. I'm going to say that again because actually I like that line. The difference in what we define as value versus what our wives think they define as value dictates just how rough a red pill transition will be for the marriage. When we tell some blue-pilled fool that he's still operating in his wife's frame, we're essentially saying he needs to ditch his wife's definitions of value that are still ingrained in his head. Dread is essentially behavior that says, you know those things I do that you take for granted? Well, those things have legitimate value, and maybe I won't be around to do those things one day, and if that worries you, maybe you should consider ways to add value to my life to ensure I stick around and keep doing those things. So here's the thing. If your wife has an especially fucked up definition of value because of the affirmation trait like anxiety, neuroticism, feminism, religion, whatever, she needs somebody like CPN smacking her upside the head and saying, of course she's going to be pissed. You let her live in this bullshit fantasy world where you're taken for granted and her shit doesn't stink. The second you start indicating you have your own ideas on what matters, of course she's going to lose her shit. But other guys here with more well-adjusted wives, their definition of value is probably consistent with objective reality. Mostly. Hence our many man children whose wives fucked them more as soon as they traded in their time with video games to running the household and hitting the gym. She was pissed when you brought home that raw and ground beef because it was one of just 1,000 actions you took that week that demonstrated incompetence and irresponsibility. She values, as pretty much anyone else would, traits like competence and responsibility. So when these guys say, I forgot the ground beef and she got upset, so she started ignoring her entirely, they need to slow your roll and get that message. The message of the day says, of course, she's going to be pissed. You failed to add significant value to anyone's life. Not just hers, but yours and everybody else's. For years. There are more than enough ways to add value to your life without withdrawing even the mediocre ways you currently add value to yours, so focus on that. So all marriage counselors do, by the way, is try to translate value systems between two people, which is usually why we say it's absolutely pointless. You don't need to pay somebody in a sweater vest $200 an hour to explain that your wife is emotionally wounded when you forgot to take out the trash, because either way, it's not about the trash. Either your wife is hurt because it's yet another reminder of how you do a mediocre job and do nothing but play video games and never wanted to be anything fun or creative, and now you can't even execute basic household tasks, or your wife is hurt because you do have a good job, productive hobbies, and a strong social life, and she's just fucked up with her value system that makes her hamster otherwise. And all a marriage therapist is going to do is validate that fucked up value system because you refuse to live by it anymore. So I suppose the broad point I'm trying to make is this. We should consider how two different viewpoints, Sepians and Ferocians, led to a different disagreement between them, even though both posts were well received. These disagreements are usually because their own experiences can't help but color our opinions, and we should consider whether those experiences can be used to extend Red Pill. I'd put much more faith in that happening here than in the main Red Pill sub, which at this point is mostly just a bunch of 20-year-olds complaining about how women hate guys and that are too short or Asian. So yeah. So that's the big part of it. Twists and turns, isn't it? Twists and turns. So here's the takeaway from this. It really is a case that they're tools and you have to use your brain. It's not like a wonderful world full of excellent alpha males that carved out the path and you just got to follow the roadmap. Things are somewhat contradictory or sometimes outright contradictory. It really, and everything, as like I said, which tools do I use? Well, it really all depends. You're going to have a really anxious bullshit wife, completely AWOL. You're going to have a fairly well-to-do wife that's somewhat competent. More often than not, you're going to be somewhere in the middle. And each one has similar actions taken for entirely different reasons. With that stupid, neurotic wife that's totally delusional about what her value is, you're doing all that work you need to do because you need to get to a place where you realize that she's really not adding value and you have the confidence to enforce your boundaries because you're confident in knowing what you can execute. If you're one of those guys that's been a man-child and your wife can't stand you and thinks you're incompetent, well then you're doing those same things because as you build respect, you end up getting more sexual desire anyway. So it's funny, the exact same effort, taken for two completely contradictory reasons, achieving the same result, a happy, healthy relationship. And the funniest part of that is the guys that take those actions for the opposite reasons can screw it up by taking the exact same action. The guy who's mostly a man-child goes through those self-improvement situations, starts handling his stuff, and he does that because, fuck that bitch, I'm going to do what I do, usually pulls the modicum of value he pulled together. I have an old Mids watch video about Vampire Squid, the one chick that invaded the Married Red Pill. And that was her husband. That's what he did. He did all the self-improvement stuff we talked about, but he was doing it as revenge fantasy because he needed to teach that bitch a lesson. Almost nuked his marriage over it. All because she had a better time in her 20s than he did. And then at the other side of the things, you got a guy who's mostly competent, went through all that self-improvement stuff because he thought, well, if I fix all this stuff, she'll love me. And then it turns out the girl just took advantage of it and he was punishing himself for years, doing everything he possibly could for her. So it's funny. Like there's literally 4 different guys and they're all taking the same actions based on 4 different motivations with 4 wildly different results. And so it kind of lets you know when this thing, it really is a complex thing. The pill doesn't run very wide, but it runs deep. And this is why you cannot make it about her. You have to make it about you. You have to assume you're a giant fuck up and fix those parts about you first. There's a reason you're supposed to use her as a sparring partner. It's because if you make these same mistakes with every woman, any woman you replace her with is going to end up being just like her after a while. So you fix the stuff that makes you wrong with you, and then once you've sorted out your shit, then you focus on seeing, okay, was it an issue with me being a codependent pussy who's largely competent? Or is it an issue with me being a man-child who doesn't do anything and she does all the heavy lifting and she's resentful? Well, once you get your shit together, you can tell, okay, I got my shit together and she's still a cunt. Well, now you know which one you got. Or, I got my shit together and now she blows me every day that ends in day. What else can I tell you? You're on your own. The material's all there, but as far as like these complex ideas of what your self-actualization, what your frame entails, that's really on you. And like I said, Praxeology Volume 1 is my book. It's in the description. It's on Amazon. I know it's kind of distasteful to put a plug in here, but it really is appropriate to be able to understand your own purpose, your own vision, to get your pillars of frame together. Usually that guy is the only one that can tell which one of these guys am I. Am I a C-Pan or am I a Ferocian? So I'll catch you guys on the next one. Cheers.